Good evening and welcome to Poultry Keepers 360. We've got a really good show for you tonight. Many folks choose the wrong chicken breed for their flock. That's okay because tonight we're going to show you the simple way to match the perfect breed to your goals, your climate, and your family. Now, let's find the breed that truly is the best fit for you. Like I said, many people choose the wrong chicken breed for their flock, but it's really not their fault because they've never been told how to do it. And tonight we're going to walk you through step by step how to choose the ideal layer for your goals, climate, budget, lifestyle, and just for good pleasure. By the end of this live stream, you'll know exactly what breed belongs in your coop and which ones don't. So, with that said, I think the first thing that we really ought to talk about, Jeff, is the flock goals. What do you expect from a chicken breed? Are you into high volume egg layers? You want steady year round layers? You want dual purpose birds? Maybe they need to be kid friendly goals, an even temperament, gentle, easy to handle. Uh, Maybe you're looking at it from a homesteader's or backyard flock perspective. And space limitations is another thing that we have to consider because some of these bigger breeds, they can take up a lot more space than you realize. Maybe you're on a tight feed budget. I mean, let's face it, feed's not getting any cheaper, but there's ways we can mitigate that through management, and we'll get into that more in a future show. Um, Maybe you want a colorful basket full of eggs. We're going to talk about all of that tonight, but one of the most important segments, most important things you can think about is your geographic location because everyone has a different location. Now, my friend Mike up in Alaska, he has a whole nother set of things he has to contend with that we don't even think about down here in Florida. So you got to have a breed that matches to the climate, that does best in the climate. Would you kind of agree with that, Jeff?
100%. I wish more people would do everything you talked about. First off, when you make the decision to get chickens, okay, it's kind of like any other pet. What kind of dog are you going to get? What kind of cat are you going to get? What kind of whatever. Very much the same, right? There's a lot of similarities. And then, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's just, I just sit down and write down their goals or their dreams and their goals in there, right? And prioritize this stuff before they go to Tractor Supply and come home with a dozen of who knows what, right? Well, look, you and I get all these sad stories. I went to Tractor Supply and I bought,
Oh yeah, I
10
know.
chickens and
We've heard plenty of them. Um,
come home and a week later, half of them are dead. And it's like, okay.
One of the most important things to look at when you're choosing birds for your climate, if you live up in Alaska where it's real cold, you don't want a bird that has a large single comb. You want a bird that has more of a pea comb, a cushion comb, or something like that. I think I've got a slide in here of, oh yeah, this is a comparison of a single comb over on the right hand side of the screen to a pea comb over on the left hand side. And that's a Heritage Rhode Island Red on the right and Easter egger on the left. But you can see how small that Easter egger's comb is. That's a pea comb. And you also see that birds with pea combs have very, very small wattles. So that's less chance of getting frostbite on there. But it's not so good if you happen to live in an area like I am here in Florida where it's hot and humid because that's when you want a bird with a single comb because that comb is the bird's cooling system, so to speak. They circulate blood through that comb and lose heat by uh, evaporation, so to speak. Things like feather density and play a role, particularly if you have high humidity or dry climate. Um, and let's go to one of my favorite topics, heritage versus hybrids. The bird on the left is a heritage New Hampshire, but the bird on the right is a red sex link. And Jeff and I were talking, a few days ago, and but just give us your opinion of the hybrids as egg layers, Jeff, and what makes them so good.
Well, they're extremely prolific. I mean, under really good care and management, they're capable of 315 to 320 eggs in a year. That means they don't miss many days. So, I mean, if eggs is your primary goal, right? If you really need eggs for the table, hybrid is the way to go because you're going to get an egg pretty much every day, at least 6 days out of 7, as long as you take good care of her. And she's a lighter body weight, so they'll average right around 4 pounds, 4 to 4.25 pounds. Again, if you use them correctly, they only need 3.5 to 4 ounces of feed a day, whereas the is a much larger bird, right? And you're going to feed to maintain that body as well as that egg. So you're going to have a lot more feed invested. You probably, when's a New Hampshire laying? 24 weeks, 22, 24 weeks.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, and whereas the hybrid will start at 18 weeks, right?
Right.
So you get 6 more. You're getting 4 to 6 more weeks of eggs out of that bird. But you're not going to breed the hybrid, right? You're not going to breed the hybrid and keep that going. It's a hybrid for a reason. Whereas the New Hamp, you can breed them. You can start your own next flock. You can be in charge and control. So, but economically speaking, true economics, the hybrid just really can't be beat for total of number of eggs laid and the amount of feed you're going to put through it. So.
But and I'm going to say this in the heritage bird's defense. If you're looking at a more dual purpose type bird, then you want a heritage bird because they're going to have larger size bodies than the hybrids do. The hybrids are, most of those layers are bred to do one thing, like Jeff said, and that's lay lots of eggs. So larger body size works against that egg production.
Yep. I mean, the New Hamps are good. There's flocks of New Hamps out there that'll give you 225, 230 eggs, somewhere in that range. And that is, there's plenty of standard. I'm going to quit using, we can use dual purpose, but after we had Frank on, it was like, the standard breds, there's some really good breeds out there that are prolific egg layers. But look, you're looking at, depending on which one, anywhere from 180 to 230 eggs a year, right? I haven't checked it lately, but to my knowledge, for a long time, the Black Australorp had the record for the most eggs laid out of a hen. And that
they are laying machines.
They can be. Under the appropriate management, they are laying machines.
Jeff, I'm going to throw this in there too, because management is important, but also genetics are important too. There are a lot of standard bred lines out there where they've not been a focus placed, a good enough focus placed on egg production. It's been more about showing birds. So they lay miserably. But there are some lines, like Frank Reese's Barred Rocks and his New Hampshires that people have out there. Those are really good birds for egg production as well as for meat production. So
But that's
you just,
that's what Frank was breeding them for. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
Frank has spent his life taking the bird to what it was supposed to be, not a show chicken, right? Not just a pretty chicken. He has spent his life working on the functionality of the bird to return them to what they were originally bred to do. Okay, so
and that's something if you want good egg production, you've always got to focus on that part of the bird. You
right,
can't ever let it slip because
yeah,
it's easy to lose and it's hard to get back once you do. But
yeah. I don't know that I wouldn't go to I wouldn't go to a poultry show. You know, like we were at the Dixie Classic and the Ohio Nationals, and
mhm,
that is not where I would go to get a starter flock if I was after eggs. Okay,
no,
that's not okay. So you just it's back to those goals. What are your purpose? What's your purpose for the birds? Right.
exactly,
You know,
exactly. Um, oop, I didn't pull up my other sheet here. Hang on there just a minute. Just real quickly, I just did a little comparison sheet here of which is right for which type of poultry keeper. A backyard hobbyist is probably going to do better with a heritage type bird. And I'm going to throw this out there. A heritage type bird from a hatchery is very different than a heritage type bird from a private standard bred breeder. Big difference in those two. Um, if you're interested in maximum egg output, they lay a lot of eggs, they mature fast, and they get right to it. The hybrid is going to be your best choice. For showing or breeding, you want the heritage. If you're on a tight feed budget, and this is going to depend somewhat on your climate and housing and body size consideration, um, I would go with the hybrid bird. I don't know if that's something you would agree with me there, Jeff, or not. But
and no,
like you were saying earlier,
you're
you can't
yeah,
beat them for egg production.
right, but they are a large single comb, so in an unprotected environment, Minnesota, Canada, Alaska, whatever, where you have a potential for frostbite, right? If you don't give them appropriate housing and protection, they're not going to be your best suited bird. So,
Exactly right. Exactly right.
um, the further north I live, if I lived further north, I would be selecting a bird kind of like Esther Feathers does, where she has birds that actually lay more prolifically through the winter months with a peak home, because they're going to have more days under, that 12 hours of light.
Yep.
So it makes a little bit more sense for her, right? Versus
So,
somebody,
and one of the reasons she can do that is because that's what Chanticleers were created to do, was to be
mhm,
good wintertime layers. And I can't think of a heritage breed out there that can beat them for wintertime egg production. They're just they're just past masters at that.
now, isn't the Favreau also a winter layer? I thought they were also a winter layer.
They're
Yeah.
just not quite as good as or at
Chanticleer?
least the ones that I've seen are not quite as good as the Chanticleers I've come up
Yeah.
against.
Matt Hemmer was working with Sustainable Poultry Network, and he was bringing the breed back for what its purpose was, not for show. And he had Favreaus that were doing 200 plus eggs through the winter. Right. So he was working his genetics back to their purpose. So,
Right.
like the Chanticleer and what Esther's doing and what John Gunnerman was doing,
And
not just
my hats off
showbirds.
to anybody that, yeah, my hats off to
Yeah.
anybody that does that. Not an
Well,
easy
we've
task.
lost, the show world's lost its focus. It's all about how good they look in a show. It's
Right.
not how functional they are. And we've lost sight of that. So,
Hey, before we go any further, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, Trail Company. We would like to take a short break to express our appreciation to the Trail Company for their sponsorship of the Poultry Keepers 360 Live programming. Trail has been a trusted name in sustainable farming and poultry nutrition for decades, and their commitment to providing high-quality, natural products align perfectly with the values we hold dear in our poultry community. Thank you, Trail, for partnering with us to empower poultry keepers everywhere. We're truly grateful for your dedication and support. Very much. We appreciate Trail. They're a great company, and we appreciate their sponsorship. Wouldn't be able to do this if it wasn't for them. The next thing, we talked about heritage versus hybrid, but I want to talk about hatchery versus standard bred now. Okay. Here's two New Hampshires. The one on the right is a standard bred New Hampshire. The one on the left is from a hatchery. You can see the way the body is built much differently between the two. That hatchery bird has a more compact body. It's not as long. It's a little bit longer than it is according to the depth on that. On the others, it looks a little bit longer. It lays better because that's what they select them for. The bird on the right, the standard bred New Hampshire, it's got a deep, blocky body. It's got that deep chest on it. That allows for bigger breast muscle development. They usually have longer legs, which translates into more thigh and drumsticks. But they also look different, not just in the way the type presents itself, but in the coloration of the bird too. But you can't eat color, so I'm just going to leave that one.
So I don't know the standard, but like a mature female New Hamp is in the 6 to 7 pound range, correct?
Yep, correct.
And the males will be 9 or 10, somewhere in that ballpark. Those hatchery birds are going to max out. Those hens are going to be about 5 pounds. And that's even when they're old. They're going to be about 4.5 pounds, 4.5 pounds when they start laying.
Yeah.
So they have crossed them out, right? They've crossed them out with some leghorn at some point, and then brought them back on, with that New Hamp male to get the coloration and get things back in line. But they have crossed them out. So the backyard enthusiast is happy. They get a few more eggs than they were expecting, that sort of thing. And they call them a New Hamp. I mean, I don't know. And Hoover's is primarily the hatchery that's doing the majority of the Tractor Supply, Rural King, farm store type chickens anyway.
Right.
But they're a long ways apart from being the same chicken. And,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Not everybody knows that. I mean, that's fine. But
another thing, and I don't know if you've noticed this or not, Jeff, but I have found that by and large, the hatchery birds are a little bit more high-strung, maybe a little bit more flighty. The males can be people aggressive, where I don't see that as much with some of the heritage standard bred birds.
I mean, you bring up a really good point. And, I don't want to digress too much on this, Rick, but, people talk about the breed as far as aggressiveness, flightiness, things like that. I hear it on my commercial side of poultry that I do, as well as my, my breeders and my backyarders. This my personal feeling, right, is it's really how the bird is raised and managed. So, if you get them as chicks, the more time you spend with them, the more time you spend handling them, and if you give them a secure environment, I haven't seen this drastic aggressiveness or flightiness that everybody talks about, right? So Now, unless you start talking about, Old English games or ASILs or, other types of birds, but in the lineup of Orpingtons, Australorps, Barred Rocks, etc., I haven't really seen it. I don't know. Have you
Oh
seen
man,
it?
I have seen Hatchery Rhode Island red males that were the devil himself. I mean, they would go after you in a heartbeat. And
Huh.
I believe it was in Hutt's book on poultry genetics of the fowl by E.F. Hutt. He talks about that demeanor and attitude and aggressiveness does have a genetic characteristic about it, and that surprisingly, the female transmits more of the attitude than the male does. Just food for thought and something to think about.
I don't know.
Um,
I just personally attribute it more to environment and how they're handled working with them. But I could be, I've been wrong before. So
hey, could probably honestly, it's probably both. Is my feeling. But there, like you said,
well,
there's an awful lot that goes into how you manage your birds and how you handle them as to how they respond to you.
okay. So I do a lot with like Highline Browns,
Hmm.
which is a hybrid, egg layer. I've had people say, "Oh, I'm never getting Highlines again. They were the most miserable birds. I couldn't do anything with them." That on and on and on. And then you know, and I go and actually I do flock visits, right, for larger scale, 500 to 1,000 birds or more. And I've gone into high lines here, and when I judge a flock, right, like if I came to your place, Rip, and your flock, regardless of its size, if they all panicked and flew to the other end of the enclosure, whatever it is, okay, I know we have a problem. It's either the way they're being, it could be what they're being fed, or there's something in their environment that keeps them very stressed. I've walked into other flocks, I can barely step in the door, right? And they're all huddled around my feet, eating my shoelaces, they're to let me pick them up. So exact same breeds. So I don't know. That's the only reason you know, I've come to
And
the conclusion.
I
I don't
was
know.
talking with Sue Dobson about the attitudes and the demeanor of our standard bred Rhode Island Reds. And she said, they just don't get out of the way. And I said, well, I just refer to mine as my little red trip and fall hazards. That's about what it was.
From well, no, he
Kind of breaking up there, Jeff. Um, we got any more? Let's see. Enlarge that
So
so I can
Rob
just.
was talking about for starting birds to start with cheap or cheapish,
Mm-hmm.
and talk about getting a mixed flock. Now, I'm not saying he's wrong, but here's what happened. I had a mixed flock. I had Barred Rocks, Hatchery, Barred Rocks, Rhode Island Reds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I brought in 10 black Australorps. Okay. Again, Hatchery, black Australorps. And but whenever I'd sit out there and observe them, they self-segregated, right? And like the Barred Rocks became the prey for the black Australorps, and you know, all under the same management or whatever. But when I'd look out across the yard, all the black Australorps were on one group, the Barred Rocks were together, right?
Mm-hmm.
They I worry about mixing breeds a little bit for a beginner because you will have some segregation and you're going to have, you're going to cause some stress mixing a flock. Some breeds
Yeah,
mix really
because
well.
invariably those breeds, when they segregate, one's going to be the bully group and the other one's going to be the bullied group. because they'll get beat up on. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah, I mean that's what I saw. Right, and you couldn't pay me to have another Americana, so because they were the meanest ones I ever had. I mean, they even though they were a smaller bird than the other ones, they were just they chased down the other hens and just terrorize them. Right, and I have no idea why, and that's just my group. Other people do fine with them.
I tell you what, Jeff, if we got to where we could figure out everything about a chicken, we would know something. We would know something.
We ain't never going to get it all figured out.
No. Let's go on. Have we got any more questions out there, Jeff? I
haven't seen questions, so
okay.
Yeah, I haven't been good at paying attention.
Some folks may be really interested in egg color. Okay. And I thought this was a really good illustration because it's got every shade that the chickens lays out there. It starts with the olive, what they call an olive egg, olive colored egg from Olive Eggers, up in the upper left-hand corner. And then it comes down to more into the green blue range and the blue range, and then whites, and then the light browns and the slightly medium toned browns and the very dark browns of Well Summers and Marans at the bottom right hand corner. But I don't know if you have egg customers. I don't know what it is about this, but there's something about a dozen of multicolored eggs that are really popular with the homeowner. And some of them swear they can taste.
You know, you could brown eggs taste different than a white egg, and blue eggs taste different than and the green egg. They all have a different flavor. I have I have some larger commercial flocks that purposely keep some of the the blue egg birds in there. They don't keep a lot. They don't keep a large flock, but they try to mix their dozens going to the store, so there's one or two in every dozen, and it just keeps the customers engaged, and it's whatever entertained. Right?
I've seen one, and I can't remember what the egg company is, but you could get dozen blue eggs all at one time. And they were like about $8 or $9 a dozen. It was some ridiculous, god awful price.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about the psychology of that. Okay. And
yeah. Sue, she says she has some patients that won't eat blue or green eggs. They taste different. Her response, of course, is that's a bunch of malarkey.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. Another thing I would be looking at, because I mean, let's face it, feed is not an inexpensive thing, and it's something we're getting at least probably weekly or at least monthly. The feed cost. Some breeds, and particularly the hybrids, have a better feed efficiency and feed cost to egg ratio than other breeds do. Jeff, and it's been so long since I've worked with anybody in the commercial side of things, but what do they consider a good feed cost per dozen eggs?
Feed cost? I don't, again, I don't work in that.
Okay. Fair enough.
World. So Yeah, I mean they're doing feed formulations based on 3 ounces of feed, like 18. And feed is, their feed is like 400 a ton. So, see,
He's getting his mathematical mind going there.
yeah. So, yeah, 36 ounces of feed, so 2.5 pounds, 2.5. Yeah, they're about two. They're between 2 and 250 a dozen on feed, or a little
And
bit less.
that's something I would encourage our viewers to do if you've not done it, is to check and see what your feed costs are. I think it will surprise you. And if you are a 24 hours a day, 7 day a week, let them eat all the feed they want person, your feed cost is going to be higher than somebody who limits the amount of feed that the birds eat. And the simple way to figure that, see if I can find it, cost per dozen eggs, feed cost per dozen eggs. Take your monthly feed cost, divide it to all the eggs that were laid that month, and that will give you the cost of feed per egg. So you need to multiply it to get your feed cost per dozen. And like I said, I think it probably is going to be an eye opener for you. Um, and I came across a little chart, and I'll share that with you here. Real world comparison numbers. Now, and this is based on feed quality. I didn't get any analysis, didn't show any analysis or anything of the feed. All right. But birds fed on a high quality feed, laying to 5 to 6 eggs per hen per week, 210 to 240. That's pretty much in line with what Jeff was talking about. Um, Birds on an average feed is going to be closer in cost to $2.60 to $3.20 a dozen, just for the feed. And if you got some of those really poor bargain basement type feeds, you're looking at upwards of almost $4 in feed cost per dozen eggs. I think that alone can convince some of you to maybe reconsider this, let them eat all the feed they want type thing.
Yeah, it's people don't understand what it costs them to let their hens eat free choice. Now, in some climates, Rip, like yours, in a warmer climate,
Mm-hmm.
hens rarely tend to overeat because they eat for their calorie requirement on
Right.
a daily basis.
Right.
But I can tell you, when you get much further north, north Georgia and up, you start
Makes a
getting a little
difference.
bit colder. You get a little colder weather, the hen wants more calories, right? She doesn't necessarily need them, but she's going to eat more feed. But
And
everybody wants to coddle their chickens, right? And give them
true.
more and give them treats and give them whatever. So
Yeah, that's not a good thing. Um, Somewhere here it is. Um, how many eggs? And this again, this is an approximation, an average. Okay, how many eggs can you anticipate from the breed? Your high producing hybrids, 280 to 320 eggs per year. That's for the first 1 to 2 years. After that, Jeff, their production is really not worth carrying them over much past that, is it?
no, No, well, look, nobody manages them right to do it anyway. So if you want to keep, uh, if you want to keep birds for multiple lay cycles, um, being in charge of the molt and doing it appropriately at the right age, yeah, I can get three good out. But people just let the birds do what they want on their own schedule, and, uh, and if you don't get that body weight, if you don't get the body internal fat down and get some of that body weight off of them, they're not going to be great layers on the second cycle. Right? They're going to be more yard ornaments. Um, and back to the goals. Are you after eggs? Are you after meat? Right?
Exactly.
Or do you just want pets? Right? You want something that looks good in the backyard. It'll sit on your lap and you can cuddle with it. Then all those have different purposes. So you just have to decide what you're after.
Yep, exactly right. I've put together a little list here of like reliable heritage layers, New Hampshires. Um, and incidentally, I want to thank the New Hampshire Breeders Club of America for allowing us to use their artwork of New Hampshires. But 200 to 230 eggs per year off of New Hampshires, that's not bad at all. Um, when we get into Australia, go ahead, Jeff.
Just like you said, as long as you get the right genetics, you can do that.
Yep.
But
Yep.
not every New Hampshire can do
that. True. Australorp's 220 to 280. It really is one of the, I think, of the heritage breeds, is one of the best layer performers out there. Plymouth Rocks, and I'm a big fan of barred Plymouth Rocks, I know, but there your numbers are dropping down to like 180 to 220, and Wyandottes are even lower than that at 170 to 200. Heat-tolerant layers, like your smaller bodied birds, like leghorns and Minorcas. Leghorns start out at about 250 to 300 eggs per hen, and Minorcas 200 to 250 eggs per year. But now you also got to take into consideration that Minorcas have a larger body size than the leghorns, so that's going to impact your egg production some. Cold hardy layers, Orpingtons, Delawares, Chanticleers. Just forgot about the breed that you were talking about earlier.
Which one? Yeah. The Faverolles.
I hate getting old.
Anyway, Faverolles or the
Faverolles. Yeah. Those are usually start at 170 to 180 eggs and go upwards to 190 to 200 eggs per year. Your specialty layers, your Morans, you're only getting like 150 to 180 eggs per hen per year. But a lot of that has been because the emphasis has been placed on dark eggs over number of eggs, because the more eggs that the Morans lay, the lighter the egg color winds up being. Americanas, your blue egg layers, 180 to 200, about a medium output. So my key takeaway from all of this is production varies more by source than by breed, and whether it's a hatchery or a breeder bird, standard bred breeder bird. That's the two deciding factors to that situation there. Jeff, did you have any? That's got us through the end of the.
Well, I mean, you just got me thinking, Rip, and so look, if I wanted to have eggs year round, for the household, I would probably try to find two different breeds, one that really lays heavy in the spring and summer, and one, so like getting either a Faverolles or a Chanticleer, having half the flock as a Faverolles Chanticleer, and the other half of the flock, like a New Hamp or Australorp or something like that, then you're more predictable for having eggs almost year round, right? You'll have a little bit of overlap in certain seasons. But so, I mean, if supplying eggs for the table is your primary goal, I would consider a mixed flock. And the Chanticleers are pretty docile, right? So they're not.
They are.
My understanding is they should cohabitate pretty well with.
Let me ask you a question, Jeff, because
Okay.
I've heard this makes a difference. No, that doesn't make a difference. But in your opinion, does the timing of the time of the year the bird is hatched affect their production in a particular season? For example, who's going to
It
be your
does.
better layers? Spring hatch chicks
Well,
or winter hatch?
your winter hatch, right? So your best layer. Okay, now this is a light dependent, not, but dependent, or your light stimulated hens are best hatched somewhere around December, right? So you can optimize. They're at the right age when the days start getting longer in March and April. So somewhere at the end of November, early December is your best hatch date for spring layers. And it would be vice versa for your Chanticleers and your Faverolles. You would want something that was a spring hatch. So getting that maturity when the days are getting short in October, they're gearing up to start laying late September, early October. Right. So it just depends on when you need the eggs. But when you hatch it, when that bird hits its sexual maturity, which anywhere from 16 to 24 weeks in most breeds, you just back it up from you want eggs, and that's when you want to start your chicks. You're going to start from chicks. Pretty simple.
Yep. Here's a comment, and I should have thought about this breed because they are a very, very calm, docile breed, but they have Barnevelders that are very docile, and it's another one of those puppy dog breeds. I don't think they're quite as bad as Rhode Island Reds for getting around your feet and being a trip and fall hazard, but they run them a pretty good race, I suspect.
I don't have a lot of it. I don't have a lot of experience with the Barnevelders, so I can't. I really don't know, but I believe you.
They are they're a beautiful bird. They got that golden bay background color with the lacing on the feather, black lacing on the feathers, and they're very, very striking.
Okay. I'm sure I've seen them. I just haven't put two and two together. I don't. I just highlighted this one to make sure we got it up here. I don't know of a list.
I don't either.
And maybe we should put together a list, Britt, best of our knowledge anyway. It won't be perfect, but we can. Other than there's only the two winter layers that I know, right? Faverolles and the Chanticleer. Do you know of any others that are wintertime layers?
I really don't. Sadly, I really don't, Jeff.
The majority of birds, even in the wild or poultry, are all spring layers. Yeah, they're stimulated by light, increasing daylight, and that's what gets them going. So, like I said, when you have about 12 hours of light in the spring is when you want to back it up, 20 weeks to start those chicks. Yeah, the only two fall or winter layers that I know of are the Faverolles and the Chanticleers.
Oh, and while you've been talking, I've been sitting here trying to rack my brain. Nothing really comes to mind on it. It really doesn't. Oh,
Yeah,
Jeff,
I've never
unless
seen a
you've got
list.
something, I haven't either.
Uh,
Unless you have something else to add, I don't. Um, I don't know, and
we didn't.
I just realized you couldn't see my shirt because it's behind this microphone.
Yeah.
But Jeff and I have on matching festive feathers T-shirts for the Christmas season. Kerry would have been wearing his if he was here, but he's not here. So we're going to give him a
Yeah,
pass tonight for not being here and wearing his T-shirt.
that's all right. Yeah, I don't know if we answered people's questions, or I mean, I don't know if we helped them outline, as far as what they want. But I think the key takeaway is if you're purely in it for the eggs, probably get hybrids.
Yes.
Um, if you're in it for dual purpose reasons, you've convinced me that the new Hamp is most likely the best way to go, because you get the carcass on them. So if you're going to breed them, raise them, right, you want to take your extra cockerels and roosters, or even your old flock of hens, and put them in the freezer for food for the family. Then I think the new Hamp's a great way to go.
And I would agree with that.
How far along is the breast come? Are they up to 200 plus eggs? I think Kerry said his breast, he's at 200 eggs plus.
I don't know. I haven't heard Mandolin say recently, but I know hers are probably knocking on that door if they're not.
Right.
Uh,
Again, people that have focused on, their hens for egg production, and their cockerels for meat, with a decent carcass at a reasonable, because Mandolin was getting a 4-pound carcass at 14 weeks, right? Not bad at all. With that was during the feed trial. Really good feed, really good management. You can get a 4-pound carcass at 12 to 14 weeks, and but I'm pretty sure she was. I thought Kerry said He had, his breasts were at that 200 eggs, per lay season as well. So, I mean, the breast is coming along. It's going to find its niche, if it hasn't already. But I mean, I think the popularity is going to be there. I haven't seen. I don't know that I've seen a new Hamp. I don't know if I've seen a new Hamp carcass yet. Do they look good? I mean, as far as eating, I think they're long, aren't they?
Not as long as you would think, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I should have thought about adding some of those pictures, but I've got pictures of some of Frank Reese's New Hampshire carcasses, and I've got some of his. I think I also got some of his Barred Rock carcass pictures. I can at least post those to the groups if anybody's interested.
Yeah.
I'll try to remember to do that tomorrow.
Frank is focusing more. I think he still has the chickens more as I think as a genetic, backup sort of thing.
Yep.
I think most of that is coming out of New Jersey now. He's working with another young farmer, with the Barred Rocks and the Morans. So
And
I think
he got somebody in the South too working. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know who it is, but I know it's not me. Thank goodness.
Yeah. But I knew that he has his genetics because of AI reasons. He now has his genetics in multiple places just so he can save the strain. But I think all the chick and egg sales are for the Barred Rock, and the New Hamp is coming out of New Jersey. But yes. I don't remember that. I think it's on the website. I think it's on his website, but I don't remember it off the top of my head.
Honestly, I'm glad to see that they're making those genetics available, because for a long time there were people that were really interested in them, but Frank just wasn't in a position to where he could supply that kind of demand. So I'm glad to see it's getting out there.
Well, like I said, he's worked. Frank is not a spring chicken, so he's worked a long time getting his breeds, where they're supposed to be, right? What they were designed for.
Yep.
And so yeah, I wouldn't
Whole
hesitate
lifetime.
to get to, yeah, it really has been a whole lifetime. But he's
Yep.
got to be close to 70 if he's not, right?
He and I are about the same age.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So
mid-70s. All righty. Well, folks, we hope that you have a very good weekend coming up, and we certainly hope you have a Merry Christmas in just a few more days and get to spend time with family and friends and just have a good time visiting and spending time with each other. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another show, and with any luck, Kerry will be back with us. No, I'm sure he will. I'm just picking on him. But until we're back in 2 weeks, keep learning, keep improving, and keep enjoying the birds that you love. We'll see you in 2 weeks, folks. Bye-bye.
good night.